There may be times when we are powerless to prevent injustice, but there must never be a time when we fail to protest. Elie Wiesel, Romanian-born American writer, professor, political activist, Nobel laureate, and Holocaust survivor. All right, welcome back to yet another episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. If you tuned in this morning, thank you so much. And if you're tuning in again, thank you for giving me your time, not once, but twice. We are doing a double feature today. Earlier, I had on a dad for Dad Talk, and now I get the pleasure of having Spike Cohen, the legendary Spike Cohen, to come on and talk with me about activism. Before we bring him on, do me a favor, folks. If you enjoy this show, I want you to be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And for the really serious folks out there, I want you to hit that bell so that you never miss an episode. All right, we're going to bring Spike Cohen on, and we're going to have a great time. So please welcome Spike Cohen.
Wow.
That's my audience. They're like all of them.
You know what's funny is when I had my show, by the way, thanks for having me on. When I had my show, I had this super long applause break that would take, I think it was like a 40-second long file. And I would go, oh, thank you so much. Oh, no, please. Oh, no, I'm clapping for you. But when I had nothing for my guest. When I would introduce my guest, it was I tried to figure out how to make it when I would go over to them that it would start. And it was too much. And so I didn't. I did the exact opposite of what you did. I had them cheer for me, and then audience was fine with hearing them.
I'm just I'm just steadily trying to improve the show, just every little bit that I can.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's behind the scenes, people don't see it, and I'm like, wow, this is really awesome. I would love to tell people about it, but they're not going to notice a thing. It's just easier on me.
Yeah.
And then there are things that they can obviously appreciate. All right, before we get into this, just want to ask you, where's the mixtape?
You'll never know. You'll never find it. Here's the thing. And I've said this a few times, so this is not breaking news, but it apparently needs repeating. It's out there. It is on the internet. You can find it in theory. Like you can find it. I've looked for it before. It is still there. But it has not been found thus far. And I defy anyone to find it.
Fair enough. However, I didn't want to have to do this to you, my man.
Oh no.
But the gangster side of my youth has kicked in.
Oh, wow.
And so I got something that I got to play here.
Oh no.
Yeah. I went there. So hope you got about a minute or so. Try not to.
I'm a little scared, but yeah.
Let's make this happen. Social media, reality. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference.
Is this Enya?
We as podcasters have a responsibility to these kids. Psych. If I heard doxed, exposed in cold blood tomorrow, would you feel sorrow or show love, or would it matter? Could never have any confluence if I couldn't reach so many with a little influence. But there's way too much at stake for me to be fake. There's too much on my plate. I done came way too far in this game to turn and walk away and not say what I got to say. What the hell you think? You speak and woke, you smoke and crack. Before I do that, beg Republicans, take me back. I'll get up before I get down, run myself in the ground. Before I put some fake news out, I'm talking smack as I call out Spike, make him grab a mic.
Oh wow! Oh, this is a diss track. Okay.
To piss him off, lit to the cannon with that, just twist him off.
Wow.
Cause you could do space lasers too, screw shooting, just trying some verbal keep you. So what's up now, punk? Let's see you freestyle. Talk is cheap. Libertarian, you really feeling frog is sleep. Yo, dad, you gon' let them get away with that? They try to play you, you can't let them escape with that. Man, I hate this crap, this ain't rap. This is crazy the way we act. That we confuse Twitter with real life, let the tweet stop.
Oh wow, ended with gunshots too. This was very, I was gonna say it's passive aggressive, but this is just aggressive. This is
I cannot believe that I just did that.
And
Oh
ended it with
Lord.
gunshot. I let you. There were a few threats in there, both
Yeah.
idle and like actual explicit threat, and then ended in gunfire. So no, I'm proud of you. That was
Yeah.
good. That
Yeah.
was
I spent
possibly
way
the.
too long on that.
I can tell that there was the production values were far better than that had any business having. Um, I especially, yeah, no, I love the attention to detail. I love that it ended in gunfire. That's arguably the best diss track of me. That it's not a long list of
Right.
diss tracks
Right.
as far as I know, but that's
So,
of however many of more than zero. That is
right.
the greatest one I've heard thus far.
So, um, I get the pleasure now of being, I think, the only one that can say you've been served. So I'll be
Yeah.
waiting for the response diss track. Okay, maybe a long time.
You will be waiting for a while. Yeah, that'll be okay. I
Um,
would go ahead and move start like I wouldn't wait. I wouldn't put off anything else
right,
until that happens. I would
right,
go
right.
ahead and plow
Yeah.
forward in life. Yeah.
So, all right, now we're done with the goofiness. Oh man, people are going to cancel me just for being retarded. Anyway, so
Well,
you have this organization called You Are the. I haven't been canceled just yet for all the other things that I've said. So I figure why not? Ben Shapiro did a rap, whatever. I figure I can do it. So anyway,
yeah, no, listen, if you're going to get canceled, let it be for a arguably one of the better um and more well-produced podcaster diss tracks
right,
out there. As far as I've heard. So
right.
I'm not exactly a connoisseur.
Right, right. Yeah, it's uh I'm willing to bet any musician out there probably listened to that and cringed a lot, not a little, a lot. They're like, "Oh Lord." But hey, all in good fun. So let's get to the meat of today's talk. So
Mhm.
you are the power. We're going to be talking about activism today, folks. And what better person than to bring on Spike Cohen, who has done plenty of activism over his time. So for anybody that doesn't know, give us a brief intro about You Are the Power. And then I want to talk about, hey, what do you got going on? What's the latest in You Are the Power news?
Yeah, so you are the power. The long and short of it is we find people who are being abused, whose lives are being destroyed by their local and state level out of control government officials, right? Like we talk a lot about the stuff happening at the federal level and all of that, and there's plenty to talk about there. But there's so much happening in your own backyard that you might not have ever even heard of because it's not happening to a large group of people or it's not happening to a famous person. It's happening to like one of your neighbors who you've possibly never even heard of. And so what we do is we find those cases and we tell the public about them. We create this content that very often goes viral.
Mhm,
And then we don't just say, hey, here's this thing that's happening, be mad about it. When we send it out, we also send out a link with all of the names, the email addresses, the phone numbers, everything else of the officials who are actually doing it.
mhm.
This is another thing. We often will say the government is doing this. People are doing this.
Right.
Human beings, individual human beings are choosing, they're using their agency to choose to do something good or bad to another person.
Mhm,
And so what we strip away, the government did this. We say these people in their capacity as whatever their role is are choosing to do this. Here's their phone number. Here's their email address,
mhm,
and here's a template of wording that you can use. If your words fail you at the moment, and right now all you can think to write is "you suck, I hate you," which hey, you know what? Fine, that's valid too. But if you
mhm,
want to say something with a little bit more substance, here's an entire multiple paragraphs that you can copy paste or borrow wording from or even just use as a reference point for you to reuse your own words. And so we basically make it easy to not just find out about these things but actually do something about it. And thus
mhm.
far of the causes that we have taken on, uh, over 90% of the causes that we've completed we've had victories on. We've won
Okay.
the causes,
So
so
you
it's
have a
been
90%
incredible.
success rate.
Yep, 90% success rate. Now,
I like it. I love it.
the reason I say it the way I just said it is we have some causes we've been working on for over a year.
Mhm.
So we don't count that as a success or a failure until it ends. So on the
Right.
ones that have ended, we've had a more than 90% success rate.
So let me ask you, when you get people to get involved, um, how trying to think of how to phrase the question. H- Do you measure or gauge the level of involvement that people have? And can you compare like, okay, we've got this organization. We've found a story. We vetted the story because we talked in the past about how you vet the stories,
Yes.
and we've put it out there. Now people have the links, they have the names, the numbers, the email
Yeah.
addresses, what have you. Can you tell us, like, can you gauge what the engagement rate is compared to if people just heard the story in the news?
Well, it's hard to compare to something we don't have the data for, right? But what I will
Right.
say is this: as we've continued doing this, and especially once we switched over from telling people in the posts, here are the email addresses and phone numbers, which apparently the algorithms don't like that a lot. Instead, now
Mhm.
we'll say, thank you, D, cyberbully the government. Now what we'll say is in the comments or in the next post in this thread, because
Mhm.
social media hates when you put a link in the post.
Right.
But we'll say, here's a link to our website that has all the relevant information. So it makes it easier for all of you to be able to get involved because it's all there in one place,
Mhm.
including wording templates and everything else, without crowding a social media post with all that information. But the other thing it does, it allows us to track how many people are visiting, right? So,
Mhm.
like how many hits we've gotten to that page. Our number of hits have continued to rise as
Good.
we've done this. So from that standpoint, it's been we've seen on our end it has been more and more successful. Um, I also we leverage those traditional ways of getting the word out as well. We go on podcasts, we do interviews with local and regional media, and in some cases national media. So we do those things as well. But
Mhm.
I can tell you just from our baseline of when we started being able to track the number of hits that we're getting to our site, that's continued to rise pretty dramatically, actually.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Because I know we had a vice chair here. He's since passed away, and his big thing was local activism. And he
Yeah,
loved going to city council. And he would just be
yeah.
like, "Yo, you have to go to city council and yell at him." I'm all like, "Well, about what?" I mean, like, let's,
Just
and he would
yell,
just
just
like
go and yell. Yep,
go and find something. There's something there, is kind of his
hundred
attitude,
percent.
which is true, but it is hard. It's very difficult. Now, um, you also will sometimes go out to, like, locations and speak on behalf of somebody or some group as well. Am I correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Although we've found that I have to do that less and less. We used to, when we first started, just about every cause we took on, we ended up doing an in-person follow-up. We'd have
Mhm.
hundreds, sometimes thousands of people reach out to these officials on social media, on their emails, and so forth. But usually it would require at least a few dozen of us showing up at the next city council meeting, their next rally, their next whatever, to actually get their attention.
Mhm.
What we're finding out now, probably from a combination of the fact that that the number of people that we send their way has gone up like one or two orders of magnitude since we started. Hundreds to thousands is now becoming tens and hundreds of thousands of people reaching out to them. But also, I think our reputation is beginning to precede itself, and so because of that, very rarely do we have to do stuff in person anymore. We
Okay.
don't have to actually show up to them. But when those things do happen, then we're happy to come out. We were actually looking at me coming out to Surprise, Arizona earlier this year. We had the story of Rebecca Massey. She showed up to her
Oh, yes.
city council
Yes.
meeting wearing a cyber bully the government shirt, which you can get at youarethepower.net/cyber. All proceeds go to You Are the Power. But anyway, so she went out. She's wearing an awesome shirt, and she's calling out the city officials. And they said, "Oh, you can't name us or mention our titles. You can't reference us at all." And she said that
Right.
violates the Constitution. You can't tell me what I can say up here. And so they had her arrested. And we jumped on that as soon as we found out about it. We were considering actually going out there, also wearing a bunch of cyberbully the government shirts and speaking out against us. Turned out we didn't have to. They dropped the charges, and now they're kind of running scared. So that's
Good.
kind of an example of how in the past we may have had to do that, and in the future
Right.
I'm sure we'll have to as
Right.
the things that we're taking on become bigger and bigger. I'm sure we'll have to return back to more in-person stuff. But thus far this year we had very little of that. We'll see next year what holds. But we the long story short is if it comes to that, we will absolutely do it. And if I'm telling the truth, that's my favorite part.
Right. No, and the reason I was asking, because I had been considering putting it out there that, hey, I would be, willing to potentially do that from time to time as well. Like, because I
Yeah.
know a lot of people get intimidated by public speaking, going up, probably more so the public speaking than anything. And that doesn't bother me. In fact, I'm actually much better public speaking than if you asked me to go talk to one person by myself. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, go grab that person and start talking to him. I'm like, give me the Xanax, hurry it up. Like, I can't do this. So it's a weird dynamic for me.
Yeah.
But and it's funny that you mentioned the Rebecca Massey story, because here in Jacksonville, we didn't have anything that was quite that large, but I had noticed that our city council would sometimes cut people off when they got a little bit too colorful in their speech. Now, I get it. If you're coming in and you're just like, F this, F that, F you, you're this, you're that, and you're just cussing and carrying on, well, at that point, you're not even being even remotely productive. And I can kind of understand putting the squash on that. So I do get at some level. But if you just like, if you just say one word in the midst of it, and you're kind of ranting and doing your thing, and it's
Yeah.
otherwise pretty family friendly, I'm like, let it go, because you're our representatives. You should be able to hear us in our rawest form. And unlike people like you or myself who are, enjoy public speaking and maybe spend time writing a good speech, some people
Right.
will just get up there and they're just passionate and they just want to say what they got to say.
Yeah.
And if that means a profanity or two come out, then so be it, deal with it.
Yeah.
And our D here points out that Marcus was our yeller. Where's that comment here? Marcus was our yeller. So he's the guy I was referring to a few minutes ago. He was our
He
yeller.
is
He would go
very,
to,
very missed. Mark is
yes.
very missed. Yeah.
And his response one day was to go in there, and because they were squashing people's speech, and he went in there and he called them mother humping goat fornicators,
Wow.
um, to get around it. And
Which is a scientific term. That's like not
right.
even vulgar. Yeah. That's a
And now I don't, he was like, do you care if I
it's a
say
medical
this? And
term.
I was like, like, I think there are times when we need to breach a little decorum. I'm more of a decorum kind of guy, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, I think if you're willing to do it, and it makes a point, it makes a valid point here. And then I also followed up later, went in there and I tried to poke at them, and because you're right, they will say like, you can't say our names, you can't. We have not heard about the titles, but here in Jacksonville, they will complain if you say their name. You're only supposed to talk to the chair. So I
Yeah.
did that very kind of rudely,
Yeah.
and then I asked a question, and then he ignored me because he was busy on his phone, and I was like, "Excuse me, I believe I'm talking to you, Mr. Chair." And then
Yeah.
he's like,
Yeah.
"Well, I'm not allowed to answer questions." And I was like, I looked in the rules. I disagree. I don't believe that he can't answer questions. It didn't make any
Well,
sense.
and neither can they say you can't mention us by name. And honestly, they can't even say you can't be vulgar. I mean, there's actual like court precedent on this.
Mhm.
As Rebecca pointed out right before they arrested her, she said I could come up here and say nothing but vulgarities for 3 minutes, and I'm allowed to do that. Now,
Right.
there are some restrictions. You can't make threats, like you can't threaten people's
Mhm.
lives. There's some reference to I forget the exact wording, but basically you can't go up there and do something that disrupts the whole proceedings.
Right.
And there are some more specific tests to that. It's not at the discretion of the council to decide if you're disrupting things. But no, when it comes to vulgarity, you absolutely can use it. I tend to be on the side of whether you use vulgarity or not. In general, my thing is I want to make a point that connects as many of the people in there with what I'm trying to say. Right.
Right.
Like I'm trying to reach as many of the people, both there and the people who will be watching recordings of it or watching a live stream
Mhm.
of it or whatever else. And if possible, even reach the officials. I mean, that's kind of the last thing because you expect that they're kind of dug in at that point. But
Mhm.
we've had people that, I've gone up there and spoken, they changed their mind. Maybe it was for political expediency. Maybe it was because I just, talk so pretty, but whatever it was, or
Mhm.
maybe it was just seeing so many of their constituents saying, we're outraged about this, stop doing it. So I'm not a huge fan of it. But the bottom line is when it comes to your rights and their duties, their
Mhm.
duty is to respect your right to speak. Now, with that
Right.
said, that was a great segue to something we have coming up. So if you are one of those people who says, I don't know, I'm not really that great of a public speaker. I'd love to go and speak in front of my city council or to show up to a You Are the Power event, be one of the speakers, but I don't even know where I'd start, how I'd say, I've never done it before. We actually have, for all You Are the Power members, we have a free training session that I'm actually hosting on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. For all members, we have a training session where I'm going to give the basics about public speaking, including
Mhm.
how you can, prepare what you want to say, talking about whether you are someone who likes to read a speech rather than speak from the heart with some kind of prepared talking points you reference. The purpose behind why you would be doing this, what you're actually trying to accomplish it, how to build up confidence through practice, and a lot more. So if you're interested in that and are a member, then go to either the You Are the Power app or our
Mhm.
You Are the Power social media or the email that you got because you're a member, and sign up for my training session for Monday. If you're not a member, that's great news. You can sign up by going to youarethepower.net today. We'd love to have you be a part of it. It is free and available to anyone who's a member.
Awesome. I put it out probably about a week and a half ago that I was considering doing maybe a weekly podcast where people could join. And yeah, have you ever been to Toastmasters?
No, but I know you that was where you learned to get out
Yes.
and be able to do the public speaking.
And the phenomenal thing about Toastmasters is that you don't just learn how to speak per se, but you learn how to give
Right.
critique. You learn about meetings. You learn how to organize a meeting, and just to kind of keep it brief. They have different roles that people play every time you attend a meeting. So you've got somebody that's like a grammarian. That's the hardest one actually, because you're listening for grammar mistakes, and then you just note them down and you tell everybody at the end. You say, "Here are the grammar mistakes, that you made," and you have somebody who's like an counter. They count how many times you say and all that, and they have like impromptu stuff. So it's like I would say, you know, tell me a dad joke, and then I'd put you on the spot, and you would say, I put you on the spot. I'm
Hi,
pretending right now.
DL, I'm Dad.
Right, right, right. So, right, but that's the point, like to teach people to be impromptu, right?
Yeah.
And like you could have done something else. You could have been like, "Whoa, wow, I don't know," but you took a moment to pause and then you said, "All right, you threw something out, right?" And so this kind of training is what I did that for several years. Every week I would go in person to a meeting. So I thought about doing it online and, just inviting people to come on and just I would like organize it in a similar fashion and just give people training because I think once we get past the barrier
Yeah.
of public speaking, more people would probably do it because it's really not that hard. And
Yeah.
once you get used to it, it's not scary.
And one of the great things that it sounds like Toastmasters is doing and other similar programs are doing
Mhm.
is it demystifies the whole thing, right? So when, part of what happens when you see public speakers is there's a bit of pomp and circumstance to it, right?
Mhm.
Like, when I get introduced to speak, at a smaller event, they're like, "Hey, here's Spike," and they hand me the mic, and even that comes with some like gravitas. People are
Mhm.
hearing cheering and all that, and they're like, "Wow, that's bigger than me." But if I'm at like a big event, there's music and my face is up on the thing with my name
Right.
and everything, and so people see that and they're like, "I could never do that." But if you go to a place full of a bunch of other people who also are not necessarily comfortable with public speaking, you're already on like a relatively
Mhm.
level playing field with a bunch of other
Right.
people who are also not judging and are learning.
Right.
You have things like, even the process itself, instead of it being like, okay, get up there and speak and inspire us, instead it's like, all right, go up and speak about this thing. Again, none of us are judging, we're all learning.
Right.
We're going to have someone that's going to talk about your grammar. At some point you'll be the person that will focus on someone's grammar.
Mhm.
That all of that does is it deconstructs and demystifies it, so that now you're just focusing on getting comfortable with doing it and getting better at doing it as you get more comfortable with it, or I guess rather getting more comfortable with it as you get better at doing it. And the whole time it's not, I have to be a good public speaker. Oh, I need to compare myself to whoever it is that inspired you to want to publicly speak. It's, I'm learning how to do this. I'm getting better at it and I'm getting more comfortable with it. And I'm getting all the specifics about it. So by the time you're actually getting in front of someone that isn't in that, in a Toastmasters and speaking in front of it, you've already done it a bunch of times. It's at least somewhat demystified. You're out of your own head a little bit and you're focused on the things that you need to do to be able to give as good of a public speech as possible.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So back to You Are the Power. What's going on lately? What are some of the current stories that you guys are focusing on that people should be aware of?
Oh, so we had two major victories over the past 2 or 3 weeks now. One was with the Savely family, and the other was with the Collins family. And I'm actually going to pull this up because we have so many families we deal with. I will always end up messing up someone's name.
Mhm.
So with the Savely family, their names are Mason and Madeline. Their son Holston has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and if you follow my social media, you probably know where this is going. Ehlers-Danlos, and a lot of other conditions that can cause things like swelling and fractures. If you get put in front of the wrong child abuse pediatrician, if you take them to the hospital, that pediatrician is going to go, "Yep, that looks like abuse," and they will not only ignore evidence, they will refuse to look at the actual like medical evidence that they have something that explains these issues that they're having. And so Holston was seized from them. They were facing charges and everything else. The most recent update is Holston was ordered to be returned to them. And
Mhm.
then the other more recent victory we had was with the Collins family, Casey and Bailey Collins. Their son, Ridge, as a newborn, was taken from them. He had blood clots in his brain, a viral
Mhm.
infection, a bunch of other things as a result of complications from when he was birthed, when he was delivered. And same thing, they took him to the hospital because he was having issues, which they knew were from the fact that he had had a complications during delivery. And the child abuse pediatrician said, "Oh yeah, no, this is absolutely abuse." Ridge was seized from them. They were charged, and we have gotten the charges dropped. And Ridge has been ordered returned home. And we are anticipating that the final decision won't be made until later this month. But based on what the judge said at the preliminary hearing, where he basically just said, "There's nothing here. I'm ordering the son returned." We fully expect him to come back and finish off this nightmare for them for good. We've had multiple cases like this across all over this year, where innocent families had their children taken from them by out of control child protective services.
Mhm.
And we believe at least a big part of that is because there's a lot of perverse funding incentive from the federal and in some cases state governments, where they give more money if they call it abuse,
Right.
but only if
Right.
they call it abuse. You subsidize apples, you get more apples. You
Right.
subsidize cranberries, you get more cranberries. You subsidize calling cases abuse, you get more cases called abuse, even if and
Right.
especially if they're not actually abuse. But thankfully, we are winning in cause after cause that's brought to us. We've had a huge success rate with that, and I would say more importantly, we are opening the public's eyes up to the fact that this is a very real thing,
Mhm.
and we do it by, again, we strip away some of the the government is doing this, and we talk about this child abuse pediatrician who is named whatever their name is, this caseworker whose name is this family court judge. They're all involved in doing this. Here are the terrible things they've done to this
Mhm.
family, and here's the family's names. And if you're as mad as we are, here are all of those people's contact information and names. So, and here's what you can say to them. Here's a template that you can use on what you want to say to them about this. And we have been told by a lot of people that have been in this space of fighting against CPS abuse, fighting against fighting for parental rights and medical freedom and things like that. We have been told that there are many organizations that have had very few and far between victories over many, many, many years. We've been doing this for roughly a year and a half, and or I'd say better part of 2 years, and have had a ton, literally a chain of victories, and are building a
Mhm.
movement around it. Now, I think the reason we're having victories there is the same reason we're having victories in a lot of other things. People having their homes stolen from them with eminent domain abuse, and
Mhm.
we help them get their homes back. People that are having their homes stolen from them, their businesses taken from them from abuse of zoning regulations and other burdensome regulations, and honestly, just people using the government to run out competition and people they don't like. People getting arrested for speaking at city council, people who have charities being arrested for helping those in need. All
Right.
of those cases, the reason we've had such victories is because we strip away the politics. We
Mhm.
strip away we strip away this uneven feeling of you're just the people and they're the government. We say you are a human being who is hearing the story of these human beings. We're at the same level as you. We're all human beings who are being harmed by these human beings.
Right.
And really all we have to do is make sure that these human beings know that we know what they're doing to these human beings, and not let off of them and keep demanding that they do the right thing and back off. And
Right.
it has worked over and over and over again. It works. And that's what we do. And again, if you would like to be a part of that, go to youarethepower.net. We'd love to have you as a part of it.
Absolutely. It's interesting. People may not even realize this, but I was once concerned about that because, most people know my wife is Asian. And so my son is obviously Asian. And a lot of Asian people have something called a Mongolian birthmark. It's just like a
Mm,
bluish, blackish type birthmark that can be
yeah.
anywhere. Right. And he has one on his lower back ish, of all places to have something that looks like it might be a bruise on his lower back. And so when we went to a pediatrician, one of the first things I was like, "Are you familiar with Mongolian birthmarks?" And she was like, "Yes, I am." And she goes, "And I can see that he has one here on his back, and I know exactly what it is. You have nothing to worry about." Because I wanted to make sure that she was aware
Yeah.
that this is a birthmark because I didn't want to get caught up in that. I don't want to have to fight that, you know. And so I can't imagine if my son had something serious, the whatever it is that you said that I will never be able to pronounce earlier, where maybe they've got brittle bones or some other issue that makes them
Yep.
more prone to injury. And then like you said, I think even well-meaning people, and I'm not saying they're all well-meaning. I think some people maybe are just like, oh, I got one, haha, and they're more worried about getting the bad
Oh
guy
yeah.
than they
Some
are
people are mendacious.
ensuring
Yeah,
it's a bad guy,
absolutely.
right?
Yep.
But I think there are some people that are just like, we hear it all the time. There are all these cases of child abuse that go unreported, that go unnoticed, that don't know. And who wouldn't want to stop those? Right? Like
Of
I want
course.
to stop those. If you're abusing a child, like yes, you need to be found and you need to be, punished for it, and but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're not catching innocent people. And so I'm glad that your organization exists to say, hey, these people are innocent. We will fight for you, because not everybody has the resources necessarily to fight or the know-how, right? Like if you're just a regular everyday person and you're trying to go to work, feed your kids, watch some TV and have fun on
Yeah.
the weekends, you're not in a position prepared to fight for your kid, to keep your kid from the
No,
government.
you're not. And in fact, they actually are. So we meet people who they've already spent all or most of their life savings. They're running up debt. They're borrowing from anyone they
Mhm.
can to fight this stuff in court. They can't then mount a PR campaign. Even if they knew how
Right.
to do it, they don't have the resources to do it. They don't necessarily have the platform to do it. But, they'll cry out for help and it somehow gets to us. We do, and we talked about vetting before, but I'll say it again. We
Mhm.
do a lot of vetting. If
Right.
we spend
And somebody
upwards
had
of
a question
six.
about the vetting. So if you want to go into it,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. So
they
we
were
spend
specifically asked if you talk about the vetting process.
yeah, so when it comes to our desk, we actually have our team vet. In fact, I can talk about we're about to actually have a major expansion and change there that's going to be really good. But our team will vet it. They go through this whole process that's been, to find out all the principles involved. Every name of every person involved. Get all of the evidence possible. Get you know the email lists, the email conversations,
Mhm.
any kind of screenshots, any kind of in these cases medical evidence, in other cases legal evidence and things like that. Any videos they have, pictures they have, testimony they have, everything else, court proceedings, everything we get, and we spend upwards of 60 hours per cause vetting these causes, which is, I mean, that sounds like an insane amount, but here's why we do it, especially when it comes to these causes of false accusations of child abuse. If I go out to my platform to the and honestly at that point to the public, and I'm talking to sometimes millions of people, and I go, here is this innocent family and their child has been taken from them, stolen from them, and trafficked from them by these out of control government officials. They've done nothing wrong. Here's how you can help us get baby so and so back to the such and such family. And then it turns out that they actually were abusing him or her. We have lost, necessarily and correctly, we have lost all credibility. We could have
Mhm.
been right 1,000 times before that. We only have to be wrong about something like that once. It would be bad enough if we were wrong about, like, we said that there was a charity that was helping people that, that it got arrested, and then it turned out there was a little bit more nuance to it or something like that. There's no nuance when it comes to did they abuse and neglect the kid or not.
Right.
And so we apply tremendous vetting to all of our causes. Now, the trade-off there of making sure that when we put out something, it is 100% correct, and that there's not a shadow of a doubt that the people we're representing are in the right, and that the people that are
Mhm.
doing this to them are in the wrong. The trade-off of that is that it slows down our ability to get causes out to a relative trickle.
Mhm.
Our social media team could put out 20, 30 causes a week. We could easily be putting stuff out on our mobile app and our email list and our social media groups and our public posts on social media and all that. We could be doing that, multiple times more than we are now. But we got to make sure they're legit. So
Right.
we're trickling out causes of a couple to a few a month, which is way more than we were doing even last year, much less
Mhm.
the year before. But coming into this year, we've brought on someone named Victoria Lawhorn, who has been with You Are the Power for a while. She is actually going to be our cause coordinator, and
Mhm.
she's putting together an actual team and a process who will do nothing but vetting the causes. That
Mhm.
frees up the rest of the team to do all the other stuff that needs to be done, and
Mhm.
it greatly increases how quickly we can turn around and how many causes we can vet at the same time. We're anticipating an increase of our of how many causes we can put out, anywhere from 3 to 5 times as many. So it's going to be a massive force multiplier going into next year.
Gotcha. That's awesome. I look forward to seeing that. I know we got to respect your time because you got a hard stop. So I want to shift gears and talk about activism in general.
Sure.
So here's my theory, particularly in the liberty community. I have this theory that you are basically you occupy one of three major roles, and you can either be a primary or a support in a supportive position for either any of these three roles.
Okay.
You're in
Okay.
party leadership, right? So that would be like an officer or, region rep or something like that. Somebody that's
Yeah.
doing all the voting and all that. You can be a candidate for office, or you can be an activist. And I'm pretty broad when it comes to activism. So like from podcast to standing out on the street with a sign, right? Like
Yeah.
all, going to city council, anything that's bringing attention to an idea specifically just to bring the attention. So it's like,
Yeah.
there's no gain there. Like I'm getting an office or I'm getting a position, you just
Right.
bring an attention. Okay. And so, in my opinion, I think that people generally can be pretty decent at one. Some people can be maybe good at two, any two of those. And then I've yet to see anybody that I feel can hit all three and do them well. Not saying it's not possible. Maybe there's a Da Vinci out there, right? Libertarian Da Vinci, quite possible. But and the reason I
the
broke this up, and I say this is because I think that what is critical is getting people in the right role. If you're in the wrong role, you're going to do terrible, right? Like, sure, I play a little diss track rap music for you just to be funny, but that's not what I'm really trying to do.
Right.
Now, could I be good at it? Probably not. But it's fun to do once in a while.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't do that on a regular because I'm just not going to do well. And
Yep.
so I need to stick to what I can do. And I think that we have a problem getting people in the right role and people finding their role. So with all that being said, and you can feel free to disagree or go in wherever, my question to you is, what suggestion do you have for people to find the right role? And if you want to narrow it to just activism, that's great. Or if you want to hit all three of those or whatever,
Yeah.
however you want to address it.
So, I mean, there's a few ways you can go about this. You can really do some soul searching on what your overall purpose is in life. A lot of things that maybe you should already be trying to do if you haven't already. I would say, just from a brass tack standpoint, one of the best things you can do if you truly just don't know where you should fit, offer to help other people that are doing things, like be
Mhm.
an assistant and or yeah, like an assisting role of some kind, whether it's a candidate, whether it's you know before you get into necessarily party leadership, you could just be a party functionary. You could be the person they go to help with a specific thing, or just a general kind of volunteer for it.
Mhm.
And or you can do that in outside of party activism, like what we do with You Are the Power. But I would say, yeah, just get involved and try to help. I'll give you an example, totally unbiased, obviously. If you're like, yeah, I'm not sure if I want to be an activist, I want to help, but I'm not sure how, you could just join You Are the Power and
Mhm.
see where help is needed, and you can try to help with that. You could join another activist group that speaks to you, and see where they need help. And do it from the standpoint of not just learning how to do it, but also learning, is this what I want to do? Because especially when it comes to volunteer work, But really with anything, if you're not if you're either not good at something or it's not quite in your wheelhouse or it's not something you really feel fulfilled doing, like you don't feel like it's quite your purpose, you're going to be able to do it for so long. And then eventually it's going to burn you out. Like
Mhm,
if of those three, I'm definitely not the libertarian Bo Jackson. So I think I'm a pretty darn good activist in general.
mhm,
I'm also a good organizer and leader to an extent. So like I've started a lot of ventures. I've
mhm,
started businesses. I've started this nonprofit with You Are the Power. And I think I was a decent candidate. I think I
mhm,
did fairly well as a candidate. Came in
mhm.
third place. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
whatever. Pretty good for a libertarian. But I would say I many times people are like, you should be chair or you should be the, what represent the, your district in the LNC. And I'm like, no, no, I already I'm getting sad thinking about doing that. That's
Right.
not me. That's not how I am. I've led things before, but it wasn't a committee. It was me saying, okay, guys, this is what I want. Here's what I'd like you to
Mhm.
do. Here's what I'd like you to do. Or with You Are the Power, it's somewhat horizontal where I'm like, here's what I need done. Who wants to do what? But we
Right.
didn't have like a vote on it, right? I didn't have to debate people on how it was going to work. There are people who are attuned to that. There are
Mhm.
people who look at Robert's Rules of Order and that whole structure and go, this is the structure that we need to be able to run these meetings. And I'm
Mhm.
going to joyfully learn how to do it so we can have these meetings run as well as possible. I look at it and go, yeah, structure is necessary. I'm not sure if Roberts or some other rules of order is better, but I do know that I'm becoming depressed reading this. Like I can't
Mhm.
that I will fall apart if I try to if this becomes my job, I won't do it very well. And I
Right.
certainly won't be able to do it, or I won't do it for long, and I certainly won't do it very well. And so, yeah, that would be an example of that. If I had any question of whether that was a good role for me, I would have tried to assist the LNC or assist, my
Mhm.
local, local affiliate or whatever, and very quickly realized it's not what I wanted to do.
Gotcha. You know what? And I'm glad you mentioned that because I never really thought of it that way. But if somebody takes on a supportive role, there's a lot less pressure, but you still get a good taste of
Yep.
that particular role. And then you can say, you know what, do I like this? Maybe it's a campaign, right? And you help somebody with a campaign and you're like,
Yep.
this was too fast paced for me. There are too many things changing in real time that I have to, too many emails, too many whatever role you're in,
Yep.
however you're assisting. So it gives you a taste. Or you might say, man, this is the bomb. I love it.
I love
You
this.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's kind of how I feel about like public speaking and speaking in general. Like I just enjoy it. Like I'll go to sleep thinking about like, man, if I gave a speech, I'd say this, blah blah. So I'm like, to me, that's my way of determining, is this where I belong? And then also, like what results am I getting when I actually do it? Am I getting good
Yeah.
results? Are people saying, hey, that was really good? Because I've been in roles where people are like, dude, you suck.
So there's a variation of that. When I was running for vice president, I ran for vice president, by the way, for those who don't
Yep.
know.
Yep.
But when I ran, um, I I don't think I had many people telling me I suck. There were a couple, but I got a lot of people saying, "Yeah, I love what you're doing. You're great at it, or whatever." But I get a lot of people going, "Why are you doing this?" So I loved going out and speaking to people and talking about issues and talking about what libertarians believed, like from a philosophical
Mhm.
standpoint, answering I'd go on podcasts and shows and stuff from people who were not libertarian and they'd pepper me with questions. I loved every second of it. I'm like, finally I can give the libertarian take on this thing
Right.
again. Not just the libertarian party take, but like the libertarian small L philosophical
Mhm.
take,
Mhm.
our principles applied to this issue. But the part that always to me felt the least effective was then the parts going, so vote for me and Joe, like vote for us. And people go, yeah, but you're not going to win. I'm like, yeah, but it shows that you're protesting against the status quo and the duopoly, which is all true. I'm not dissing that at all. But of all those things, that was the part that to me, I'm not saying that this is objectively the case, but going back to your thing of the subjective, what are we best at? To me, that was the part where it was like I'd say all this other stuff. I'd talk about what libertarians believe in. I go, so vote for me. And that was the part that was like, is that the takeaway I want them to have, or is the takeaway I want them to have the greater message behind what we're doing? And so that was a part of what kind of led to the I guess the glimmer in my eye that has now become You Are the Power, was I wanted that payoff at the end,
Mhm.
that call to action to be, let's fix something now.
Mhm.
Let's not do a protest vote that could one day grow the party so that one day we could get the status that we need to make it easier to get ballot access, so that we might get on the debate stage, and then at another time then we can do this and do that and then do this and do that, and then one day we might actually win. Again, that's a necessary thing, right? Like,
Mhm.
that's a good thing. But for me, going back to where are you best able to serve, I wanted to be able to say, here's this terrible thing that's happening. Here's who's doing it. Here's what their phone number is. We're going to fix this.
Right.
We're going to get them to back off now, or later this month, or later this year, not, create steps for a distant libertarian utopia. And so I'm not saying that to say no one should do that part. In fact, it is necessary.
Mhm.
But for me, my better use, and what makes my heart sing, and what makes me want to do this for the literal rest of my life, is being able to tie something bad that's happening, and instead of going, man, that sucks, I can't wait till libertarians are in charge and this stuff's not happening anymore. Instead I go, this thing's happening, man, I'm glad I found out, we're going to fix this.
Got it. When as you because once upon a time, you were a budding activist, if you will,
Yep.
and you probably weren't as good as you are now, just like
I
anything
might have
else
been
in
better.
this world.
I may have been falling apart, actually. I think I was started with beginner's luck, and it's all been downhill since.
Right. So as you go along and you learn more, you get more experience, all that good stuff. When you look back, what's a big mistake that you think people often make that limits their efforts? Like one thing that they
Hmm.
can look out for, or maybe two, whatever, at least one.
The first thing that comes to mind, if I spent more time on this, I might come up with something better. But the
Sure.
first thing that came to mind that I think I was doing wrong initially was, I would get in front of that city council and I would approach it the same way I would approach a campaign speech, in that I would maybe start with the issue we were talking about, and then I'd start getting into what libertarians believe. And
Mhm.
again, not part because it was not tied to the party. It was, what philosophically what libertarians believe, and how we would deal with this and stuff like that. And there were a couple times I'd do it, and I'd watch the city council members almost be like, what I thought we were talking about, like, this, homeless shelter we were trying to shut down. Like, it was like,
Right.
what are we talking about now? And I realized, I'm like, if they're having a hard time following this, I think a lot of others are as well. And I realized at that moment, it's about this cause.
Mhm.
I can pepper in talk about, you need to, this wouldn't happen if you saw these people as individual human beings. The problem is you see them as funding opportunities or obstacles or political
Mhm.
opponents or whatever. You're seeing them as some abstraction or collective. You're not seeing them as individual human beings, right? So I can frame my messaging around that greater cause, and saying things like, I know you would never do this if you were on the other side of that dais. I know you wouldn't walk up to people and threaten to ruin their lives because they're helping other people, or threaten to
Right.
take their child from them. But because you're on that side, you feel like this is your job and you're the government. So the libertarianism is in there, but it's all, instead of trying to take the cause and point it towards libertarianism, I'm taking libertarianism and pointing it towards the cause. So that was the biggest mistake I think I was making. And
Mhm.
once I made that change, that's when my videos started going viral, because it was speaking to something that, like, just general members of the public are like, hey, yeah, why do we let them do that?
Right.
And that was when it was, that I think that was when the change happened for me.
So we can summarize that by saying when you're doing a thing, whatever that thing is, you're trying to run for office, whatever position, whatever role, whatever thing you're doing, read the room essentially. And
Yes.
I mean, I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but read the room and say, like, are people getting the message that I think I'm sending? Right? Whatever, in whatever way you're doing, whether it's giving a campaign speech, whether you're speaking to city council, whether you're just
Yep.
talking to your aunt who is like, a super duper Republican or a Democrat, and you're trying to
Yep.
just speak to them about a topic, right? Read the room and ask if they're understanding. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because when I first met you, the first thing I said, and it was really clumsy, you probably won't even remember this, but it was I came out clumsy because I don't know why. But I said, I just kind of out of nowhere, I was like, you passed my mom test. And you were like, what? And you looked,
Yes.
and
And I had no idea. I'm
right,
like, I would make a terrible mother for a
right.
variety of reasons.
And
So
what I was trying to get out and say was, when my mom was a diehard Republican till the day she died, and when I would talk to her about libertarian ideas, the way that I knew that I said it well to her, for her to understand, was she would say something like, "Oh, okay, I understand now," or "I see." She would say some phrase like that.
yeah.
That didn't mean she was convinced, but then I knew she understood the way that, in a way that I was trying to communicate. Maybe not the best way,
Yep.
but at least somewhat. And I was like, okay, and so that kind of became a beacon for me, a guiding light when I'm talking to people. Do I see people nodding? And are they saying, "Oh yeah"? Does it seem like a light bulb is going off? Right? Or are they just kind of like nodding, like, yep, yeah, yeah, whatever I'm saying is probably not having the effect that I would like it to have, you know?
And
And so I think
try
reading the room is kind of it.
read the room and try to create a linear path towards the end goal of the point you're trying to make and what you're trying to direct people to. Treat it like it's a funnel.
Mhm,
We often, unless you're geared towards or trained to do this, we tend to be scattershot, right? We,
mhm,
we say our things, we say what we believe, we say, and then we leave it where it is and people can take what they want from it. The problem is, if you think of advertising, activism, campaigning, anything, it's taking stuff and directing it towards what you want. And
mhm,
in my case, like I said, initially I was directing it the wrong way. I was taking the
right,
cause and then directing it. I thought the end goal was get people to be libertarian. No, no, no,
right,
no. Use libertarianism to get them to do that cause. And then the further funnel down from that is keep them activated on these causes and teach them libertarianism about, drop, drip, drip, drip along the way.
mhm,
And one day they wake up and or, they are strong believers of what I call the principle of human respect, respecting people as individual human beings, not using aggression, force, fraud, theft, and coercion against people, and realizing that when we do, things are worse. And when we don't, when we respect people, things are better. We're happier. We're more prosperous. We're more harmonious. But the way you do that is by directing it to what it is you're trying to say. So if you're running for office, everything you're trying to say directs back to, and that's why I'm running. That's why I realize that the constituents of whatever you're running for, deserve better, and that's why I want your vote. If
awesome,
you're an activist, you gear it towards, and that's why I want you to go to this page and tell all these officials what you think about their terrible thing that they're doing, or I
mhm,
want you to go sign this petition, or I want you to come out to the next rally. If you're in sales and you want to market something, and that's why you need this product, it always goes back to you read the room. What do they want? What do they want to hear? What's going to connect with them, and direct it towards what you're actually trying to get them to do.
awesome. All right, well, we're gonna have to wrap it up here. You're a busy man. You're all over the place. You're tweeting at all hours of the time. Are you staying active, my man? You keeping your health up?
Yes. Yeah. No, I'm
Awesome.
very active. I am someone with, I have MS and degenerative neck and disc problems, or degenerative disc problems in my neck and my back.
Mhm,
And I work out more than I think most people my age because I have those things. And if I don't, I will just slowly crumble in front of you,
awesome.
or quickly crumble. But no, I am. I'm active. I'm happy. Those who follow my social media know that I'm actually been on this really incredible faith journey. That's just it's taking my happiness to a just completely different level. And I no, I'm doing very well. I would be remiss if I didn't mention very big news and how you can help. Again, go, here's a great thing, direct it to what I'm trying to say. One of our biggest donors is so impressed with what we've done this year and so excited about what we have planned for next year that he is matching dollar for dollar any donation that we receive for the rest of this month, all the way through the end of the year,
Awesome.
up to $150,000. So if you're sitting here going, man, Spike, I love what you're doing. I have all these taxes I'd like to deduct, but I don't know how I can put those things together. Well, I've got great news for you. If you donate to You Are the Power by going to youarethepower.net, donate, or by going to youarethepower.net/membership and becoming a paid member instead of a freed member, any of the ways that you want to donate, if any amount that you give, not only can be deducted from your taxes, not only will you know that it'll be put to incredible use and be greatly appreciated, but it will also be doubled. So if
Awesome.
you're able to give, I know I also go to the grocery store. I know what what prices are like right now.
Right.
So don't give more than you can, but if you're able to, we'd greatly appreciate it. You are the power.net.
Awesome. Stay active, people. My wife said I should do lunges to stay in shape, and that would be a big step forward.
That was worse than that. Is a diss track of yourself that you just.
I promised dad jokes, and I tried to do my best. All right.
Yeah.
Spike, it was great having you on. I can't thank you enough for joining me. I hope that
Thank you.
people really enjoyed, listening to you, and hope that they will go to youarethepower.net. You can see it right down here on the little scroll bar going across. So make sure you go there, join, get out there, and stay active, folks. And Spike, it was great having you. So I think you got to
Always,
go
man.
because
Thank
we
you.
are right at the end. So I appreciate it. I'm going to kick you backstage. And if you got to go right away, you got to go. I'm going to close out my show. Shouldn't take me but a minute or so. So, but again, thank you so much. All right, folks, thank you for joining. I hope you found this episode inspiring and informative. And, make where's my script at? It's gone. Anyway, so I'm going to do my best on my script because it's not in front of me now. I lost it. But anyway, I hope you found this show informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. For an informative discussion on politics and culture. And be sure that you are subscribed to my YouTube channel or my Rumble channel. If you wish, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com or rumble.libertydad.com. While you're there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. Last but not least, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great weekend. Catch you next time. But for now, I'm out.